Okay, Night Elf. I want to do a quick status quo. No, let's just move on. We have no idea of the status quo. We need to actually play to get more experience. Night Elf balance changes. Archer. Massive buff to a baseline unit. Let's talk about archers. Archers get used against Orc rarely. Generally, Night Elf makes 1 archer, Demon Hunter, Beastmaster, Tinker, 2 Angels of Wind, tier 3 talents. Just 1 archer, almost never more. Sometimes you see me play on ladder, you see people make more archer. Generally, those players lose the game. They try to rush, burrows, they try to kill, stuff, AP rush, Ancient of War rush, they lose. If they win, they got lucky. It's not very good against Orc to make more than 1 archer, and it generally doesn't happen. And the pros don't really do it, for good reason. Occasionally they may make more, but it's because they were forced to make more. Because Orc is doing like tier 1 tower rush. Then they'll make more. For those cases, this is a big deal. For the 1 archer into tier 3, although I won't say it's negligible, this buff is not a big deal for the Night Elf Orc matchup. It won't break it. Against human, archers generally get used about... I hope I'm not mistaken here, maybe chat can help me. It is true that I am a random player these days, because I play 2 days of request and 1 day of serious, which is Orc. I'm more Orc than random though, but I am also random, and I do hope to play all of them and test them all out and to be balanced about all this. But my knowledge is still better in Orc than others. But I hope I'm not mistaken if I say that Night Elf makes 3 to 6 archers against human. Is that true or not? If you follow the pro meta, speak up, chat, and I will read this. I think they make 3 to 6, depending on how heavily they get harassed. Do they get tower rushed? Do they get wisp rushed? Yeah. Most chat agrees. They say 3 to 4, 3, 4, 3 to 5, max 6, sometimes 2. Sure, I think we are in agreement. Okay, so for this situation, keep in mind that defense upgrade got nerfed somewhat, and archers got bonus health. For this situation, Night Elf is both more able to be aggressive against human. Oh, someone had a good point. He said Night Elf makes 1 archer and mercs. That's true as well. I've seen that. 1 archer, 1 berserker, 1 priest. Yeah. Of course, this is all going to YouTube. Don't worry, you can see it again. And I'll do the rerun. You can see it again when my stream ends. It's already 2 hours long. There's a lot to talk about. And it's very exciting for me. So I'm taking my time. And I'm trying to cover every aspect. But yeah, you can see it again. Don't worry. But of course, you should have your notepad out to write everything down. Huh? This will be on the test. Yeah, against human and undead, they could be up to 5 archers. And this is a pretty big buff. The question is, did Night Elf need... We don't know everything else yet, right? All the patch notes, I mean, Blade got nerfed, but Fortified Burrows comes at tier 2, and then Bats get buffed, and then Shaman get buffed, Walkers get changed, and Destroyers get nerfed. There's so many changes everywhere that it's hard to estimate everything. But where is Night Elf right now? I would say they're in a decent spot. They can win tournaments. They can do okay in every matchup. They're probably neither the strongest race nor the weakest. Right now, I think, Night Elf. I think they're either 2nd or 3rd. But it depends on map and what player. And the truth is, there are not enough pro players statistically to prove whether one race is doing better than another. But generally, and this is my opinion, I always think Night Elf is top 3. Sometimes best, sometimes 2nd, sometimes 3rd. Undead is generally the weakest, but really good against human. Human is the best, and Orc is 2nd or 3rd or 1st, depending on the map and the player and so on. So, Archer get buff. I think it's okay if there are also other nerfs, maybe. So let's see. And also, Night Elf tier 1 is generally kind of weak. You cannot play archers or huntresses for a very long period of time. You can do so a little bit at the early game, but generally they get outscaled fairly early. So I don't mind Archer and Huntress buffs if it gets balanced around with either the other races changes or their own later on. And this doesn't matter. Chimeras. Chimeras are a non-factor in tier 1 of in 1v1. Almost. Except sometimes Chimeras get used against Orc if the game goes very, very weird indeed. They almost never get used against Undead, but might be if Undead goes Abomination Meatwagon. And they get used against Human if Human plays Expansion on Echo Isles with Mortar Breaker Caster. Sometimes Rifle. It can be that Night Elf goes Bear Dryad with Expansion, either Warden or Demon, for example on Echo. Human does like the Infi or TH style and does the let's build towers in the middle of the map style. They have low hero level but lots of casters. Night Elf has way better army with bears, but they cannot move through the slow from Sorks. And there are guard towers. And then they pull back and so on. And really the Chimeras break through the stalemate in this. So very late game, Chimeras can work against Human, and that's where they get used. And in that sense, getting their half damage splash radius reduced by 25 is a bit of a big deal, but then again, not really against towers, but it does matter against mortars and casters. However, having said that, I think it's fair. Chimeras can't attack air, but they attack ground. They do magic damage against ground, a lot of damage, a lot of splash, and then they've got the corrosive breath. Corrosive breath is only against buildings and doesn't splash, so this purely affects their capability against clustered ground units. In 1v1, when you get them, because when you get them, they are correct choice to make at that time. When you get them, they perform very well at their duty. But they don't often are the right play. They're not often the right play. So I think the nerf at least is okay in 1-on-1. Now let's talk about 4v4. 4v4, there's a lot of unit clusters. FFA as well. And in those games, Chimeras are insane. And there, the exchange is very correct. As a 5-foot unit, it doesn't matter that it can't attack air. In 4v4, you cover each other's weaknesses. So you're looking for specialist units that are really good at what they do. And someone else will take care of anti-air. Either bats or flying machine or whatever. Chimeras are insane in FFA, team play, 4v4. And this is fair. Correct direction. I don't know if it is enough of a nerf, but it's the correct direction. Bears, Druid of the Claw. 4 damage less, straight up. I think that's fair. Bears have insane DPS without Roar. Even insaner with. A lot of health. They also have Rejuvenation, which is insanely good on heroes and on themselves. Full heal for themselves, full heal for heroes usually. And that's it, right? They don't have anything else. Just DPS, health, healing, and damage. The stuff of life. I think that's fair. Druids of the Talon. The baseline unit for Night Elf versus Orc since forever. Cheap, spammable. Recently the meta is 50 foot, stay, and make even more Ancient of War with Nature's Blessing to buffer them. They are just insanely cheap. You can kill so many and they'll have so many again. They only ever make one unit. The Night of Orc matchup though is pretty well balanced. Generally I would say the better player wins. And it is balanced around unhealthy things, in my opinion. It's fun. It is like a microcosm of imbalances. You leave out 70% of each race's diversity, and then you have a frustrating gameplay experience. It's fun. Frustrating can be fun. It's challenging. It's but it is very one-dimensional. Night Elf Cyclones, the Orc stuff. Orc and Snares, the Night Elf stuff. Night Elf can't move or can't do anything because they're cycloned. Then, like, you just pre-position. Either Orc is good early and just snowballs Night Elf, or Night Elf gets like some burrow kills or building cancels and then they snowball, or it's like a really long epic game. But there are a lot of things of the talent that are too powerful against Orc. Cyclone is too good and Fairy Fire is too good, and they're too cheap. But if you don't go talents, Night Elf can't really do anything against Orc. Bears, Huntresses, Archers, Hippo Riders, Chimeras, Mountain Giant, Glaive Thrower, AP Rush, none of it really is sustainably good against 129 Orc. So, as much as I think it is way overdue to nerf the talent, when we evaluate, when we do a summary at the end of everything, we need to see if there's the balance of power with Orc Night Elf matchup has been shifted around enough to validate alternative Night Elf tactics against Orc. If that's the case, then it's good. 15 gold more is a pretty big nerf. It doesn't invalidate them, but it is a big deal. It means less money for healing potion, clarity, fewer Ancient of War. It's a big deal. But it doesn't change their basic functionality, at least. No less damage, still Fairy Fire, still Cyclone. And generally it was not the gold that was the bottleneck, it was the fact that Night Elf wanted to stop at 50 food, which was the bottleneck. It does make the early to mid game harder for Elf. They might have to make 2 archers instead of 1 to bridge the gap to Cyclone, which changes the timings a bit. And of course Blade Master agility -2 is a big deal, so in that matchup he is essentially crucial to deal with talents. And with him being weaker, this is probably fair. Fairy Fire lasts 1.5 minutes on units, which is insane. 70 is still too much, but it's in the right direction. And on heroes, 60 to 40. 60 wasn't as big of a deal. It did matter, of course, but it's mainly the fact that there was something tracking you for 90 seconds. It was usually not your hero that was the weak point, but it was a unit. That's still the case. The difference is still 30 seconds. But the max is now 70, and that's a big deal. And I think that's fair. 20 seconds is not half a minute. Good point. Dryads. Reduce damage against summons, 300 to 250. This means that they still one-shot a level 1 Feral Spirit, but they didn't and still won't one-shot a level 2 Feral Spirit. How do they pertain to water elementals? Before it was 300. So you needed 2 and a bit to kill a level 2. You needed 2 to kill level 1. And you needed 3 to kill level 3. Now, you still need 2 for a level 1. You still need 2 and a bit more for a level 2. And you need 3 and a bit more for level 3. So especially water elemental level 3 and 2 are big winners in the versus Dryad matchup. Though I must say, by that time, maybe you rescaled to Blizzard anyway, if you're still facing Dryads. Aha! Probably the single biggest nerf of the patch notes. That's actually insane. The fact that this somehow made it through the patch notes, 15 damage increase on someone that's what is the average here? 44.5, and they get 15 bonus, which is a 33.5% increase in damage. The fact that that made it through in its current amount is actually mind-bogglingly high amount, shows how poor they probably were. And if they weren't, then they're OP as heck now. This could be a big deal in Huntress matchups, like Night of Night Elf. Night of Night Elf mass hunts was on the verge of being possible. There are 3 major meta in Night of Mirror. Mass hunts with Bottom, Archer Talon with Demon Naga, and Archer Dryad Bear. Those are the 3 major metas, with some cheese as well. It says bonus damage, but they just mean damage. Ignore the bonus. Increased base damage is what it should say, I think. It is a big buff. It makes Night Elf better at defending tower rushes from human and orc. It makes Night Elf better at sieging undead base. You probably won't siege orc with this, but you could. Beastmaster mass hunts into glaive. Keeper mass hunts against orc can be quite useful with glaive. Demon mass hunts or demon sum hunts into Beastmaster with AP and then glaive. There are some fringe cheese, semi-cheese tactics that are a lot more powerful with this now. And another tier 1 buff together with the archer. And really, it has to be said, Night Elf tier 1, not very strong. That's why they fast tech so much. It's actually the reason I fell out of love with Night Elf in Frozen Throne. I was a Night Elf main in Reign of Chaos at some point. Because Night Elf tier 1 is so weak. Moonglaive now unlocks with Tree of Ages. So this is a tier 3 upgrade. I'm not sure, but I believe the cost is 100 and /175. But I want to look this up. $100 /150. Okay, 100 /150. And it allows huntresses to do a second bounce. Normally it's ta-ta. Now it's ta-ta-ta. 3 hits instead of 2. It's not full amount that bounces to the second and third, but that's still pretty good. And it was a tier 3 upgrade, which was funny. 6 years have passed since the Alliance and Horde. Blah, blah. Now, united in arms, mankind stands to defend its shores from the tides of darkness. Anyway, Moonglaives comes out to tier 3, but Huntresses are only good at tier 1 and sometimes tier 2. And that was kind of the thing that never worked with this upgrade. Now, coming out of tier 2 actually gives Night Elf a chance to progress with Huntress tactics, maybe. And Sentinel is researched by default. And the cost for Sentinel is 100. I usually got it on stream because it's funny. Sorry, Sentinel is funny. It is a... I can't stop the beat. Can't stop the beat. Anyway, having it by default is cool. Every Huntress at tier 2 will suddenly... Or is it at tier 1 as well? Yeah, it's at tier 1 as well. Every Huntress has a Sentinel that reveals an area on the map which is attached to a tree. And it has also got True Sight. That's pretty crazy. But I did get an email from Blizzard about it. A little addendum that said that they're thinking of, they had the feedback that maybe Sentinels will get timed life. So it will run out after some time, so it will no longer be permanent. I also have to say the following. Huntresses, there's only one Sentinel per Huntress, and it will never regenerate. And also, Sentinels can be removed in 3 different ways. Dispel, killing the tree, or chopping it once with a worker. Just once. So if it's on a boundary tree, it's easy to remove it with a worker. A ghoul, peon, what have you. With a demolisher, you shoot once, it's gone. You can also purge, dispel, abolish it. So there are many ways to remove it. And that's why I think default research is fair. but the timed life probably also seems fair. Cool changes. Very powerful. You can now see Blade Master with Sentinel on Huntresses, and you can scout key locations on the map early when it is still too expensive for other races to bring out a worker to cancel it. Keep in mind this is just free bonus, and Hunters are already part of certain metas. At least a few. Additionally, what Night Elf can do also is to put one Sentinel on a boundary tree, and then with the vision it grants over the forest to put a second Sentinel on an inside tree, which is not as easily spotted or killed. And that makes it a much more insidious spy. Though it won't see as much of the terrain because it's deeper in the forest. Cool changes though. Anything like this should be stimulated. New play styles. No, I just got an email today, Nubbercakes, that said I'm free to discuss certain community feedback that they got since yesterday. I'll read the whole list that Blizzard sent. The fact that you can have 2 boots of speed, but we haven't got to that change yet, means you no longer have a ping war to click the boots. They're thinking of they're explaining that. They're thinking Hippo Riders may need more damage against air. Frag shard upgrade from mortars. They're thinking of giving it to cannon towers. Siphon mana should maybe be able to give mana to Paladin Divine Shield, even when he's Divine Shielded. They think maybe classic rockets from Tinker level 1 and 2 are not good enough yet. Obsidian Statue, they're considering moving it to Temple of the Damned to combine it with another building to promote the use of Necros and Banshees and to remove the use of Slaughterhouse as much. Now you get Slaughter maybe for those sick abominations only. I'm not sure about that one, but it's just ideas. They're thinking of nerfing Raider and Ensnare, especially. The duration of Ensnare especially, because Ensnare is undispellable by everything except Banish from Blood Mage. And Burrow to pre-dodge it with Crypt Fiend, or a Talon can pre-dodge it with Druid of the Talon, Crow up in the air where they don't become a unit for a bit. And I do agree that I think Ensnare is too uninteractive and too unfun to play against. Although generally the meta of the races and the balance is roughly in cohesion with maybe 5% differentials this way or another. And Snare can feel pretty frustrating. And when you look at Slow and Purge, although they are also powerful catching mechanics, you can still move a bit. And Snare you can't move at all. And you can Dispel Slow. Though you cannot Dispel Purge, it essentially dispels itself because it's depreciating. But Ensnare is just 100% root for like 10, 12 seconds or something. What is it? Is it 12? So I think it's okay to nerf that if Orc gets back enough other things in return, right? For the general balance. Sentinel, maybe they think time to life. Seems fair, good idea. And maybe need buff to Shaman and Witch Doctor. I'm not sure Doctor is required, the buff. I feel like they're quite good already. Especially in team play, but even in one-on-one, they're not bad. It's just that you can't afford to buy Doctors when you're buying Walkers. That's one-on-one Orc meta. You make 1 Doctor, max. Never 2. And so I don't know that they need buff per se, but if I were to mass Doctors, I do that on stream often for requests, which is funny. If they get buffed, that could be a valid tactic. Do we want that to be a valid tactic? I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, it's just an idea from their email. It's just roughly based on the initial community response. Moving on though. Mountain Giant. 75 gold less. Question from Necrotic Touch. He says Doctors aren't bad, but now that Walkers are in the Tauren Totem, are the Shaman and Doctors even good enough to go out of your way to build the Lodge now? That's a good question, Necrotic Touch. And time will tell, I guess. It has to remain to be seen and to try it out. Am I gonna play games today? Heck yeah, I'm gonna play games today. but I'm gonna take my sweet time. Foreplay is as important as play in Warcraft 3. The patch notes are my bread and butter. I used to take the patch notes, print them out, because I woke up every morning before going to school to check if there's any new patch for Warcraft. That was my routine for 2 years in high school. And if there were patch notes, I printed them out, I brought them in my school bag, stuffed them in between my geography book, start listening to the geography teacher, Cool Story Bob, open my book on the table, and I read my geography book, but actually it's my patch notes right there on the table. And I want to study them so that by the time that I come home, I know what I'm in for. I'm going to take my sweet time reading the patch notes. And then we're going to play games. Okay, Mountain Giant, 75 gold cheaper and 1 food less. Now I suck at geography. That's actually true, but it's not the only reason. I know where Amsterdam is, okay? Do you guys know where Amsterdam is? I thought Europe was a country. Anyway, this is fair buffs, because Mountain Giant sees almost no play in one-on-one. There is one situation where Mountain Giants get made, and that is Knight of Mirror, Archer Talon versus Archer Talon. And because you have Archer Talon, I actually go... No. Archer Talon versus Dryad Bear. Archer Talon can actually beat Dryad Bear because of Cyclone and the raw DPS that it puts out. And then the bear guy is like, I don't make bear, I make Mountain Giant. And this is real meta. And that's the only situation where Mountain Giant get made. And with them getting buffed, they may see a wider application. But because, look, it's easy for me to estimate the impact of a lightning orb, of lightning orb change, orb of corruption change. It's easy to estimate a change of guard towers and destroyers and grunts and headhunters, whether they're more or less viable, because they're entrenched in the meta. But it's very hard to estimate changes of necromancers, mountain giants, and orb of fire, because no one uses them in one-on-one. Will Mountain Giant now become meta, or at least borderline usable or situationally usable in other matchups than Knight of Mirror in versus Archer Talon? I don't know. They are a little bit more viable now against Rifle Caster Push Tier 2. They're more viable against Headhunter Shaman Rush, which is not a thing right now, but could be. So really, we have to see how the pieces fit together. Great change. That's a great change. Yeah, this was just unnecessarily clunky. You make a bunch of archers. Oh, I have a question. Archers got buffed on their HP, right? And Archer plus Hippogriff HP, their max HP was exactly equal to a Hippogriff Rider's HP. I believe Hippo Rider was 765. I believe. Which would make the Hippogriff have 520. Let me check if that's correct. Hippogriff have 525. Oh, so 525 plus 245, so 770 maybe, Hippo Rider. Let's see, how much is Hippo Rider? 765. Wait, am I 5 off? Read the next buff, answer the question. What? Oh. Okay. They don't lose out some consummate health just because you mount them together. Yeah, I mean, come on, that's 10 changes further away. Okay. Oh, it was literally the next one. It's because I was scrolled back up to archers that I didn't see it no more. Okay. It was right underneath. Remember, I'm not good at locations underneath places because geography went to patch notes, right? Anyway, this is good. It was clunky and now it no longer is. The cool thing about this is When you have a few archers and you happen to go to Wind for Fairy Dragon or for Druid of the Talon, you can actually make some hippos, and they can mount without needing a costly and time-consuming upgrade, freeing up opportunity cost for other things in the Wind, in the Ancient of Wind. It makes Hippo Riders a lot more viable. The bonus health is there, and you can just do some harass and then bring them back to counter some kind of anti-air. Some kind of air with hippos and keep your archers. I don't know. It's just good. I don't know how many Hippo Rider tactics we're going to have. I suspect not many, to be honest. But it's still a good change in the right direction. Ancient of War is, of course, the base barracks. It is an incredibly powerful fighter. It's important to defend against rushes. And it is also a creeping tool. Now, I know from our meeting with Blizzard last year... Was it last year? No, it's this year. Yeah, we visited this year for the Nostalgia tournament, right? Yeah. I know from our meeting that Blizzard wasn't too thrilled about the amount of creeping that is unlocked out behind the Ancient of War. They were talking about make creeping better for Elf outside of Ancient of War and better and worse because of the Ancient of War. So right now in the pro play, almost every big camp gets crept with Ancient of War. They have all the patterns played out. Sometimes with 1, sometimes with 2. You use it on a 90% of a level camp, like takes you to 1.9 on some maps. You fully use Ancient of War with 1 archer, and then you walk it either directly or after some delay, keeping it at home for defense. You walk it to the next camp, sometimes a third, and sometimes they make more than 1. And so that will be a little bit weaker because they have 8 damage. This is actually huge. 8 damage less and 100 health less. This makes it slightly more likely to get blown up while creeping with it. And it does less damage. It still achieves what it is supposed to do, which is that it absorbs all the damage that would otherwise go to your Warden, your Demon Hunter, your Beastmaster, your Huntresses, your Archer. It still absorbs all of that because of the way Creep AI works. And it can still heal for free with the Eat, or if there's very scary camp, bring 1 or 2 bonus Wisps to repair. But the damage makes them creep a little bit slower, and I would say I think that's fair. And then their supposed compensation is that Dryads or Keeper are cheaper, right? Dryads on Keeper are cheaper. Oh, that's up there. It was like 25 mana less, and that makes them creep better with Keeper, which I guess is fair to say if you go Keeper first. But the question is that even valid in most matchups? And I think not. And the Demon Hunter also has 1 agility less, which makes them creep a little bit slower as well. And although archers have more health, they don't have more damage. So creeping is slower for Elf over the whole. But they did get a few other buffs on various fringe units. But nerf on key unit Dryad and key unit Druid and key unit Talon. So overall, Night Elf is mostly nerfed. Which may give them some trouble in the versus Undead matchup, versus Orc matchup. Human themselves were nerfed as well, on the Defend Footmen at least. At least on like early game tool, like Masonry and Ivory Tower and Defend Footmen. And so far the only compensation for slower creeping and more damaged creeping maybe is the Dryads on the Keeper. But here we get some buffs. Ancient Protectors reduce build time 5 seconds. They attack 0.3 seconds faster when they are rooted. So that is their piercing splash damage. And they are fortified tower. And they do 0.1% quicker attack when they're uprooted and they do their slap. Which gives them 1.5 DPS more. And this one is 4.5 DPS more. That's a pretty big deal. So why should we care about Protectors being stronger? They don't get used much. Protector allows Night Elf to bridge the gap from tier 2 to tier 3 against Rifle Caster. Generally, the meta is that Night Elf gets 1 Protector against Human to cover tier 3 tech. They are now doing more DPS than an Orc Tower, apparently. They also have their Splash, so it's even more. They're better against Bat Riders than before. Together with the Liquid Fire nerf, Night Elf should have a much better defense against Bat Rider cheese. Protectors were pretty worthless against Gargoyles, I agree, and this makes them better. And this makes them better too, because there's a 5-second shorter window to cancel them. So this will help Night Elf against Undead, which is fair because Dryad and... Well, Dryad against Undead is not really nerfed, because Undead doesn't have any summons that have 250 health or more. And Talon doesn't get used against Undead, but this one does. So this is nerfed. So... yeah, I guess AP buff is pretty big deal against Undead. Undead doesn't do Gargs anymore. Yeah, not at pro play, that's true. The sub-pro do play Gargs. Like old school Undead players that return. Non-pro. But mostly it's Crypt Fiend. But I mean, this still helps a little bit against Crypt Fiend. But anyway, Protector is not so good against Crypt Fiend, even with the bonus damage. Moonwell. Wait, Skeletal Mages are 260 now? Really? No, 240. They still get insta-dispel by Abolish. So, Protector changes. Good for Elf defense. Now that Ancient of War is a little weaker, now you actually need to deliberately build base defense with the Protector. The Ancient of War is weaker, so the Protector is stronger. I think that's fair. Deliberate defense is better than incidental happy defense. And here, oh, this is a really big buff. More mana regen at night. First some water and then we talk about this one. This is a biggie. Okay, this is gigantic. This is making up for some of the more difficult creeping. It makes slightly lower reliance on Ancient of War creeping because you can heal more easily or more cheaply. This is a bigger buff to pros and good players than to noobs and bad players, which is generally a good design direction because a worse player is more likely on the whole to let Moonwell mana reach the max, and therefore you lose out on that growth of regen when you're already maxed. Whereas a better player and a more experienced player is more likely to use it and keep it within the growth range, the mana, from the minimum to the near max. Never max, minimum to near max. And now it regens quicker, so you can make more use of that than a worse player. It makes a big difference. It helps a bit with the creeping and it helps with defense at night. The first night phase, when you make it night with Moonstone. Moonstone is indirectly enormously buffed because of this. This is a 20% buff. And so Moonstone is 20% better as well. Interesting. Oh, very nice change. Okay, so before, if you wanted to somehow Chimera rush, either for fun or because they're the correct unit to make, you always needed to make that Ancient of Wind first. The Ancient of Wind was a problem for two reasons. One, it's a building that says, I'm going Chimeras. I made a wind, but I'm not making any Ancient of Wind units. What am I doing? Chimeras. Now there's no longer that advanced warning, so scouting is less easy to see Chimeras coming. It's also a lesser cost. You don't lose the Wisp, you don't have to build the Wind, and you can still go Chimeras. You can even go double lore tier 3 and go Dryad and Bear, and then suddenly add Chimeras. Really big buff. Giant buff, to be honest. It doesn't make any difference if you already have the Wind and Lore anyway for other reasons, but you can get there quicker. And I guess this is part of a Blizzard collective attempt to bring out some of the fewer used units. Torrents, Mountain Giants, and Chimeras. Don't see a lot of use and are now more possible. Frostworms already saw some use, so they didn't get likewise treatment. Knights saw use and so did Griffins. Knights maybe not enough, but they're pretty cheap and accessible. Maybe they could do the same for Knights? No longer need Blacksmith? I don't know. Maybe. Necros as well? Sure. Hippo Riders. I think Night Elf had a lot of useful units, but also a lot of useless units. Huntress, Hippo Rider, Chimera, and Mountain Giant. Barely saw play, so they have to play Bear Dryad. They took away some power of Bear Dryad, so they're giving more other options. Tier 1 is better, Chimera is easier, and Hippo Rider and Archer are better. So, barely saw any play. Funny HasQT. Go on. Yeah, good stuff. And then neutral balance Perch is weaker, which means it will no longer one-shot Feral Spirits. And it doesn't do nearly as much damage against Water Elemental. Perch used to leave a Water Elemental level 1 nearly dead, and now not even half of its HP is gone. And Boots will have a stock of 2. Which, again, generally, people either one buys Boots and the other doesn't in the solo play, or both want the Boots, fight for it at exactly 1900 on the game clock, and the one with the better ping gets it. You could say the one that can do this faster gets it, and to a degree it's true. One time at LAN, I was playing with someone who visited and we practiced together. He came to my house and we played on LAN. And there's even ping difference on LAN, right? Maybe 1 ping difference or less. And he won it every single time. So he was a better clicker. Maybe he was good at this because Bachelor, I don't know. But he was a better clicker, so he got it. So you win because you're a better clicker. But Boots of Speed, usually online, it was given away because of better ping. Why are you guys laughing? I'm just salty that he won the Boots, okay? Just kidding. Anyway, now ping will no longer decide who gets the Boots. You can buy 2. But let's talk about a few residual changes that this creates. 1, if you're both spamming Boots, or if you're spamming Boots, tick, 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 when you have 500 gold or more, you could accidentally purchase 2 in a row. This is not nice. If you have 490 or less gold, that problem will not happen to you. That's one change. It makes Boots a worse find. I don't know if I agree with that. Boots is already a pretty bad find, except if it's pre-nighttime. Why would you spam? Habit. We have always spammed it for 15 years, because no reason not to. And that habit will be tough to kill. I'm sure it will happen to some streamers and players, that they're accidentally going to spam it and get 2. There's another thing, is that boot denial to an opponent is no longer a play. For example, I see Archmage going to a goblin shop, I send my blade to cut him off using Windwalk or Speed Scroll to get there quicker, I buy the boots and the staff so that I can chase him and he has to use TP. That is no longer a play. He can buy his own boots as well and run away. We both have boots. But it's good because the ping war is not possible anymore. And finally, there's one more thing you can do. You can still deny. You can buy 2 boots for 500 gold, denying the other player his boots, and then you sell one of them. For 125, it's half cost. So your investment of denial is 125 gold more than before. And when you look at how powerful denial can be, I think that's a fair investment. It will no longer be a no-brainer or a really good tactic, but a situational denial. You have to buy both to deny it. It's nice that this is still strategically possible, but it's also nice that it costs more to make for a greater opportunity cost loss. Cool stuff. Oh, the second stock is up when the first are not... Wait, boots don't become available at the same time? Oh, I finally understand the first part of the Blizzard email. Stock start on boots means click war lives. Wait, I actually don't understand. I'm not sure. Okay, maybe the shop doesn't get the double boots right away. Okay. So there's a cooldown? The maximum stock is 2, but it starts at 0 and has to charge both separately. Oh, so everything I said is invalid? Luckily not the whole patch notes, right? Just this one? Okay. So this change is quite unimpactful. Forget everything I said about boots. Later on there will be 2, so later on denial is no longer a thing. Ping wars will still be a thing, click wars will still be a thing, and denial of a single boots is still a thing. This change barely matters and I wasted a lot of words on it. Fair enough, fine. Now, PTR is available for download. Thank you for sitting through the PTR changes. I found it very enjoyable and I hope you did too. Had I not done this live, I might as well have done it by myself, solo, offline. So I was gonna do it no matter what. And instead you guys got to watch. Hope you enjoyed it or found it interesting.